Are you frequently in a state of fatigue? It might surprise you to learn that your cellular health begins to decline as early as 25 years of age. As you get older, your cell membranes start to become like Swiss cheese. The cellular damage is the primary cause of biological aging and could be the root of your fatigue. But there's a breakthrough supplement that's scientifically proven to repair and renew your body's cells. NT-factor lipids. NT-factor lipids are identical to the phospholipids found in your cellular membranes. NT-factor is the only solution proven and published in medical journals to repair those dead spots in the membranes. I've been using NT-factor for years. I don't go a day without it. NT-factor lipids comes in an easy-to-use powder in 2 convenient sizes. For more information and to order, just call 800-982-9158, 800-982-9158, or go to ntfactor.com. That's ntfactor.com for NT-factor lipids powder.
Welcome to Leyla Muedin. I'm your host, Leyla Muedin. I'm a registered dietitian nutritionist here in New York City. If you'd like to make an appointment with me, the number to call is 1744. Again, 212-779-1744. If you'd like to email me questions, topics of interest, that email is questions@drhoffman.net. Remember, it's .net, not .com. questions@drhoffman.net. I want to talk to you about statin use and sarcopenia. There's a study out of the UK, a UK Biobank study, ties long-term statin use. Statins are your cholesterol-lowering drugs, your Lipitor, Zocor, Crestor, those. This UK Biobank study ties long-term statin use to sarcopenia, which is a loss of muscle mass leading to a loss of strength. Analysis of data from nearly 300,000 citizens of the United Kingdom tracked over a 20-year period shows a decline of up to 25% in grip strength and a 73% drop in appendicular lean mass. That's your appendages, your arms, your legs. A 73% drop in your lean mass among continuous statin users compared to people who had never taken any statins. Grip strength, which actually is used now in physical exams of doctors in the know, grip strength is being used as a proxy for longevity. Get this, grip strength diminished by a mean of 0.315 kilograms per year from baseline among the statin users, and appendicular lean mass showed a parallel reduction of 0.057 kilograms per year. Interesting. Notably, these changes were independent of any genetic predisposition to statin responsiveness, as well as demographic variables including age, gender, body mass index, as well as comorbidities. Continuous statin use, they're saying, is associated with decline in muscle function and mass over time, irrespective of genetic susceptibility to statin response, according to the lead investigator. And this is a study that came out of Uppsala University in Sweden at the Department of Surgical Sciences. So this study emphasizes the importance of monitoring musculoskeletal health in statin users and supports further research into the potential role of a healthy diet and regular physical activity in preserving muscle function, which may also reinforce the cardiovascular benefits of statin therapy. So physicians who prescribe statins do need to be more diligent in monitoring of muscle function and pay close attention to nutritional and lifestyle factors that can help preserve, potentially restore muscle mass and function. This is where physicians would greatly benefit from referring their patients to a nutritionist, a qualified nutrition professional who can aid in this area, among other areas. And by the way, this paper was published in the Journal of Cachexia, Sarcopenia and Muscle in November 2025. It was published in the Journal of Cachexia, Sarcopenia and Muscle in November of 2025. So, since the dawn of the statin era, I want to say 1980s maybe, researchers as well as clinicians have been more aware that statins carry some risk of myopathy, but studies looking at the impact of these drugs on muscle function have turned up highly variable and inconsistent findings. These inconsistencies have led some researchers to suggest that the musculoskeletal impact of statins reflects individual characteristics such as age, comorbidities, and interactions with other drugs patients may be taking concurrently. The Gentro study, Melissa Gentro is the lead researcher on the study. The Gentro study challenges that notion by showing the link between long-term statin use and degradation of muscle mass and strength, independent of personal variables. So, the Uppsala team bases its conclusions on a comprehensive analysis of data from 297,977 participants in the United Kingdom Biobank project, an ongoing prospective cohort study involving roughly 500,000 middle-aged and elderly individuals in the United Kingdom. It's roughly equivalent to the US-based NHANES database. Baseline data were collected between 2006 and 2010 and included information on socio-demographic and lifestyle factors, medical history, and pharmaceutical use, as well as a host of physical measurements and biomarkers. Follow-up visits, which are still ongoing, began in 2014. The data set used by Gentro and her colleagues was released by the UK Biobank in January of 2024. The standard biometrics in the UK Biobank study included grip strength, as measured, they use a hydraulic hand dynamometer, and the appendicular lean mass, which was estimated using a bioelectrical impedance analysis. This is often used in BMI, in body composition rather, not BMI, in body composition. So for their analysis, the Uppsala University researchers excluded those people whose records did not have data on baseline medication use, those taking other lipid-lowering drugs along with statins, those with pre-existing mental or neuromuscular diseases, those whose records lacked genomic data, and those of non-European ancestry. They also excluded participants who stopped or restarted statins at any point between the baseline and the follow-up, or between the first and second follow-up assessments. So, on the question of whether statin use impacts muscle, The signal is very clear. Among 35,557 participants for whom there was follow-up data, on average, follow-up of 5 plus or minus 10, rather, an average of 10 plus or minus 5 years, continuous statin use was associated with an accelerated decline in grip strength and, compared with non-use, and appendicular lean mass diminished in statin users over never users. This is important. So, Gentro and colleagues note that compared to never users, the statin users were older, 61 years old versus 56 years old, and more likely to be male, 63% versus 43%. They also had higher baseline body mass index, 29 versus 27. By the way, both 29 and 27 are considered to be in the overweight category. And these people were more likely to be diabetic or hypertensive. So the statin users, they were older, they were more likely to be male, they were more likely to be overweight, and they were more likely to be diabetic or hypertensive. But when they do their linear regression analyses, they adjust for these and other variables, as researchers do, right? That could potentially impact both statin responsiveness and muscle function. The correlations between statin use and loss of grip strength and lean body mass still held. The Uppsala researchers stress that their work should not be misread as a categorical dismissal of statins and potential cardiovascular benefits. Doctors should definitely not take the new findings as an admonition to stop prescribing them. Fair enough. Muscle mass and strength also declined among the subjects not taking the statins, which is not surprising, given that most people lose muscle to some degree as they age. This is true. But the decline was much sharper among the continuous statin users. The Uppsala team is particularly interested in the impact of genetic factors on both statin responsiveness and susceptibility to muscle-related side effects. To assess this, they developed particular pharmacogenomic score that aggregated multiple gene variants associated with statin response. So they looked at all of these things. And when they plotted all this against the observed changes in grip strength and lean body mass, they found that while statin users with these high scores tended to have the lowest grip strength and the lower lean body mass measures, the genetic factors did not account for the rate of decline in muscle mass or strength observed over time. So they're saying, overall, the study shows that statin use is associated with an accelerated decline in muscle function and mass over time, irrespective of statin impact. One interesting observation from this new study is that the continuous statin users tended to have higher baseline muscle strength and mass compared with non-users. That's due partly to the fact that a higher proportion of those prescribed statins were men, and they mean 70%. And men generally have higher grip strength and more muscle mass than women. This is true. In the UK, as in the US, physicians tend to underestimate cardiovascular risk in women and are more likely to prescribe statins to men versus women. Still, the higher baseline muscle health did not avert the drug-related muscle declines observed over time. So the correlations reported by Gentro and her team are strong. But as the case with all epidemiological studies, they do not and cannot prove a definitive causal relationship. This is important. Still, there are multiple biological mechanisms through which statins can alter muscle structure and function. Their myotoxicity, their toxicity to muscles, is reflected by several elevated creatine kinase levels observable in long-term users. Because these drugs, these statin drugs, they not only inhibit HMG-CoA reductase, which is a rate-limiting enzyme in liver cholesterol synthesis, that's how they work. Statins also block key intermediates in the mevalonate pathway, like CoQ10. Depletion of these intermediates has been linked to impaired protein prenylation, mitochondrial dysfunction, and an inhibition of protein synthesis, all of which may contribute to muscle atrophy. This is true. That's why those of you taking statins who are having trouble, it's your CoQ10 is reduced. This is important in the development of muscle, keeping muscle strong as well, right? Statins also promote apoptosis, which is cell death. They promote apoptosis and disrupt calcium homeostasis. This is important. Type 2 fast-twitch muscle fibers, which are primary contributors to muscle mass, appear to be especially vulnerable to the detrimental effects of statins. This could be a major contributor to the pronounced lean mass decline revealed by this study. And beyond this direct myotoxicity, statins can also promote insulin resistance and may increase diabetes risk. This is true. And statin-associated rhabdomyolysis, that's that muscle fatigue or that muscle depletion, can trigger systemic phosphate toxicity, which accelerates aging, diminishes overall health status. These pathways suggest that statin-related muscle decline is not an isolated effect on muscle fibers, but a part of the wider spectrum of metabolic disturbances, says Dr. Gentro. So, a 2020 position paper by the International Lipid Expert Panel on the matter of statin use in athletes states that highly active people are especially sensitive to the myotoxic effects of these drugs. Obviously, they need their muscle strength, right? This sensitivity may help explain why we observed a decline in muscle mass among physically active statin users, says Gentro. All that said, the Uppsala researchers stress that their work should not be misread as a categorical dismissal of statin drugs and their potential benefits. Beyond their cholesterol-lowering properties, statins exert pleiotropic effects, including anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, and endothelial stabilizing benefits, contributing to plaque stabilization and reduced cardiovascular events. It's true. That's part of how statins work. But physicians who prescribe statins do need to be more diligent in their monitoring of muscle function and pay close attention to nutritional and lifestyle factors that can help preserve or potentially restore muscle mass and function in patients taking these drugs. Current evidence suggests that moderate exercise is generally safe under statin therapy, with no exacerbation of exercise-induced muscle injury, and that the benefits of physical activity outweigh potential harms. Given that statins are among the most widely prescribed drugs worldwide, especially to people over age 50, and that risk of sarcopenia and frailty naturally increase with age, independent of pharmaceutical use, these are important considerations. The GENTRO study has several major strengths compared with previous studies of statin and muscle. For one, the study population is massive, and it has a long follow-up period, a median of 10 years, which gives it considerable statistical power. It also adjusts for a wide range of potentially confounding variables and includes genetic data and objective measurements of muscle mass and strength. However, it does have some limitations, the biggest one being that statin use was self-reported based on verbal interviews. The UK Biobank does not include confirmatory prescription data, nor does it include information on statin dosing or use of these drugs prior to enrollment. And the fact that the Uppsala team excluded people of non-European ancestry means that the findings may not be generalizable to people of African, Asian, Near Eastern, or indigenous American heritage. Still, this is the largest and most comprehensive study to date, looking at the impact of statin on muscles. Its main message, that long-term statin use depletes both muscle mass and muscle strength, and this needs to be taken seriously. This was a wonderfully done article. This is from Holistic Primary Care. So, again, long-term statin use tied to sarcopenia, which is a loss of muscle and muscle strength. I want to thank you for joining me on another edition of Leyla Weighs In. This is Intelligent Medicine.
I want to thank you for listening to the Intelligent Medicine Podcast. Follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or your favorite podcast app, and get new episodes automatically downloaded every weekday. And please give us a rating and review. It truly helps new people discover intelligent medicine. The Intelligent Medicine Podcast is for general informational purposes only and does not constitute the practice of medicine, nursing, or other professional healthcare services, including the giving of medical advice, and no doctor-patient relationship is formed. The use of information on this podcast or materials linked from this podcast is at the user's own risk. The content of this podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Users should not disregard or delay in obtaining medical advice for any medical condition they may have and should seek the assistance of their healthcare professionals for any such conditions. Finally, please visit drhoffman.com and discover everything Intelligent Medicine has to offer, including frequently updated, unbiased health news and fully vetted product and supplement recommendations.
This is Leyla Muedin, registered dietitian nutritionist. I maintain a private practice and see patients regularly. If you require a nutrition consult with me but live out of town, there's no need to travel to New York City. I have telephone and telehealth consultations with clients from all over the country. Please visit drhoffman.com for more information. And to set up an appointment, call 212-779-1744. That's 212-779-1744. I look forward to being a collaborator in your healthcare.